Hello, everyone. This is Marita, one who catches lightning, with the Path of Ish podcast, Walking with Our Shadow, where we share ancient indigenous teachings of remembrance, all so we can walk and learn how to walk a path of radical self-love. It is with deep gratitude and thanksgiving that we welcome another opportunity for us to sit around the circle. And as we gather to get day with the Path of Ish, we're going to welcome into the circle someone that I'm really excited to have a conversation with. We have Glenis Mark welcoming us and joining us from New Zealand today. And I found Glenis on TikTok. They have some amazing things to share with the world, and I truly thought that their message and how they're going about teaching it is opening many doors for people to find their spiritual tools, connect to their energy. And Glenis will speak in their own way about their story, but let's first welcome Glenis into the circle. Welcome, Glenis.
Thank you so much. It's an honor to be here and join with you on your podcast today. It's my first time being on a podcast, so I'm excited about that. So I'm happy to see where the energy takes us today.
Beautiful. Well, we're excited that you're on here as your first podcast. So, Glenis, in your own words, can you share with us your creation story?
So in the Māori tradition, before anything was created, we had Rangi Nui, Sky Father, and Papatuanuku, Earth Mother. And they were closely embraced together, and so they had children, but the children were really squashed up inside the embrace between Earth Mother and Sky Father. And so at some point, the children decided that they didn't want to live like that anymore, crawling around in the dark and not being able to do much. And so Tāne Mahuta, god of the forests, decided to plant his feet down on Papatuanuku, Earth Mother, and push Rangi Nui, the Sky Father, up into the sky. And so from that point on, Earth Mother and Sky Father were separated. And it said that when there's a mist from the sky, it is a reflection of Sky Father missing Earth Mother. And when there's a fog on the land, it is a reflection of Earth Mother missing Sky Father. But after that separation, great separation happened, all of the different children who were the different gods of different areas of life began to create forests and trees and beasts in the ocean, as well as people, and cultivate that interconnection between people and the environment. And so that's a quick summary of the traditional Māori creation story that we have learnt from when we were children.
What a beautiful story. Thank you for sharing it with us. I'm wondering, Glenis, with this Maori creation story, can you also share with us your story of your life, of what has brought you to the circle today, anything that you'd like to share with the audience of your story?
As a child, I was often very withdrawn and isolated, and I spent a lot of time with myself. Having been through sexual abuse and being introverted anyway, I became sick at an early age in my teens, and so I ended up on kidney dialysis. So I started a spiritual journey of learning what I felt like was wrong with me, and I needed to find things to fix myself. This was when I was about 18. So this happened when my abuser passed away. And I decided I wanted to understand. I wanted to learn. I wanted to know more about myself, more about the nature of the universe. And I believed deeply in God and followed the Bible and the church tradition for many years and did a lot of healing work along the way. But as time went on, I realized that the Bible and the church didn't hold the answers that I felt like I wanted. It didn't fill in the gaps in the knowledge that there was. And I felt that the churches weren't necessarily living up to what they say they wanting to be and do in this lifetime. And so I began to expand my knowledge of spirituality by reading other books and by listening to other people who aren't from my country or tradition. And as I went along that process, I sifted through what I felt like was right for me. And then I started mixing and matching different practices and different beliefs and different values. And I came into a deeper understanding of spirituality and the nature of our planet and our universe that was different from what I had grown up with, from what everyone that I knew had grown up with. And I also had a spiritual mentor. So she taught me a lot of concepts that I had never known or seen anywhere else. And I teach a lot of them on my TikTok channel. And as time went on, I just had way different ideas than most people I knew. And so I tended to not share them very often because I knew that people would misunderstand what I was feeling and what I was sharing and what I was knowing inside my soul. Searching for the truth has been a huge mission for me, even since in my teen years. And so as time went on and I put different beliefs together and created my own understanding of what spirituality was, I began to feel that I needed to start sharing some of these concepts because a lot of people were struggling with the spiritual journey and I wanted to help. I initially felt like I didn't really know if I had much that would be helpful to people. And so Spirit took me through this long process of letting go of the fear of sharing and of realizing that the sharing journey is not necessarily about me and for me, it's to help other people. And so that whole gigantic, it's about a 30-year process, has taught me many lessons, some of them harder than others. And it has left me with this hope for the planet, for the human race, for our species, that so long as there are people like me and like you and like many on my TikTok channel who still believe in the truth and in love and in light, then maybe our planet has a chance. There's always a chance that humankind will get it right and turn to our spiritual identity and live life from that perspective rather than from the physical. But it's taken me a long time to come to that understanding because there are many understandings, there are many beliefs, there are many people speaking on many different topics about spirituality. And so it's taken me a long time to distill everything that I've heard into a format that I feel is right for me. And so one of the things I'm very strong on sharing is that there's no one understanding of spirituality and that everyone has the right to make up their own minds about what they believe about spirituality. And yet being in the space has really challenged me on that because there's a lot of things that are being shared that I don't necessarily agree with. But I've come to the place of acceptance. Yes, we all have different views. That is the whole point of free will and choice, is allowing people the right to make their own beliefs. Even if I don't agree with that belief, it's not my right to tell people what they need to believe, but just to share from my experience what's worked for me. And I am always aiming to help people tune into their own truth, their own spiritual guidance, because that is the only thing that people can rely on to help them find their pathway forward in life, especially as it's such a challenging time right now across the planet. And so this is part of my life purpose work, is to share what I've learned and what I know, just help people through the things that are going on, because many of the spiritual things that are happening are new. And when it's new, it's difficult to know what to do. And so I'm have been sharing my story for only a year now, but it helps me to feel like I'm doing my part for the spiritual awakening and the spiritual ascension of what's going on around the planet and people's spiritual journeys. And so that's my tiny little contribution to what's going on. And at the same time, it's a learning journey because I've not been in this space before this last year. It's been a new and learning experience to be in that place of teaching other people and making sure I get my words right and making sure I don't say things that upset people, but encourage people to grow rather than point out things that might not quite be right. So it's been a huge learning for myself as well. So, yes, that's been my long 30-year journey to this point, and coming on your podcast where I have seen your TikTok videos on the Mayan calendar, and the Mayan tradition is something I've always been fascinated with. And so I've enjoyed listening to your calendar updates every tresena
Mhm.
and just seeing if it matches with what I'm going through at the time. So it's been interesting for me to listen to your videos as well. So, yeah, that's a bit about my story.
Beautiful. No, thanks for that powerful share. And it's such an amazing opportunity to witness you on your spiritual journey, and to be able, to share that journey is so powerful. I was wondering, Glenis, you have created an academy called the Key of Truth Academy. What is one of the main spiritual teachings that you teach at your Truth Academy?
So I will answer by explaining how I came to call it the Key of Truth. So my mentor called herself the Key of Hope. And hope was something that I didn't really resonate with in my early years. I was always very focused on finding out the truth. And so when I came to naming this academy, I felt like I would be more resonating with the name Key of Truth rather than the Key of Hope. But the meaning of the Key of Truth is to assist other people to access their own truth, their own spiritual guidance, their own spiritual truths, because I believe that we're all completely different, and what is right for one person may not be right for another. And the only one who can decide that is each person for themselves. And so it was about encouraging people to tune into their spiritual guidance for their own selves instead of relying on others to give them their own truth. And I've actually learned that people often don't really always know what that means, is to listen to your spiritual guidance. And so that's been eye-opening for me to understand that people don't know how to access their spiritual guidance. And so that was the main point of the Key of Truth, was to help people access their spiritual guidance, to learn what's right for them in their journey rather than someone else telling them what their truth is. So, yeah, that's the main aim of the academy, is to teach people to tune into their own truth.
What a powerful lesson that is, especially when people kind of, in today's society just want to be told, who they are and what to do and check the boxes. So to walk in ceremony is a powerful example of what you're doing. Glennis, I'd love to speak a little bit about, you speak a lot on about forgiveness, and why is forgiveness so important as a key to a spiritual journey?
I found forgiveness by taking some courses by Brandon Bays, who created the journey process in her book. And so I was introduced to the concept of forgiveness through her. And then I took the concept and made it my own in my own academy. But for me, forgiveness was a way of energetically cleansing out any blocks, any emotional blocks, any mental blocks, rather than in therapy where people just talk about it. And one of the reasons I preferred this method was because I had done counseling in my younger years. And what it did is it taught me why I was thinking the way I was, but it didn't change it. And so it wasn't until I found forgiveness and how to do that process that I learned the power of the energy of changing that forgiveness into a releasing process and then being able to focus on love. So I found that counseling didn't help me. The talking didn't help me as much as forgiveness did. And so that's why I focus on it so much, is because you can say, I forgive a person, but if nothing changes energetically inside, then it won't shift and it won't release fully. And so I decided that forgiveness was a wonderful way to release those blocks, and it doesn't have to take too long, but on an energetic level. Because unless something is shifted on an energetic level, the physical won't change. And so I learned that as I looked at manifesting processes, is that our world is an energetic world. Until things change energetically, they won't change physically. And so I learned that that was a way to do my healing work that would cause real change. And so that's why I focus on sharing it in my academy.
Beautiful. Thank you. You know, over at the Path of Ish, we talk about how the Path of Ish, you know, which is the path of a jaguar, but it's really about the path of radical self love. And you speak a lot about love. You've spoken about love so far, and you speak a lot about love on TikTok. So I'd love for you, I would love for you to talk about love. Why is it so important to have self respect, self love, self accountability as you are going through this awakening process that many people are?
For me, divine unconditional love is who we are at spiritual level, at our spiritual identity. And we tend to forget that as we're born into this physical reality. And so focusing on self love is one way to return to our spiritual connections, our spiritual roots, our spiritual identity, rather than focusing on our physical identity, because when we leave this physical reality and die, then we will return back into our spiritual identity. And so for me, and looking at the energetic nature of the world, if we focus on our energy more than our physical, then that's where we'll bring greater change and greater healing. If we are brought up, and particularly for people who suffered abuse as they were children, you know, whether emotional, mental, physical, spiritual, or any abuse, then self love is something that is really difficult to understand and to incorporate into their lives without a lot of healing, because basically, as a child, all of your developments and protections have been completely destroyed. And so remembering love is actually really hard until you are able to do the healing work and return to love and return to those self-love practices that you, but if you weren't taught those things, then it's actually really hard to understand what self-love is and then to incorporate it, because you never had that growing up. And so I realized on my journey is that self-love is a way to reconnect to our spiritual identity, but it also helps us to create a reality of love in our daily lives. So our thoughts create our reality. If we're stuck in the abuse and in addiction, then we will create more of that. But if we're focusing on healing and self-love, then we will create more of self-love. And so it's about both our spiritual reality as well as our physical reality. And when you focus on love on a daily basis, then that's what you'll create in your life. And so it's a long journey for those who've been through abuse, is realizing what's happened to you and learning to heal all of the abuses and the negative emotions and feelings and beliefs, and then moving on to focusing on self-love in your daily life. It's a long process. And so I continue to talk about it because this physical world doesn't seem to be too interested in divine unconditional love. There's a lot of distractions out there. And so I feel like part of my work is just to keep reminding people that there are those of us who are focused on love, divine unconditional love, spiritual love, and identity, who aren't trying to, use or abuse others. Because when you've been abused, that's what you expect. And so if people can see that there are those out there who are focused on love and teaching people about love, then they may see that it's possible for them as well, which it completely is. But they just have to do some work on letting go of what's happened and focusing on what they want in life. And so those are some, huge reasons why I keep focusing on love in my TikTok videos, is just to keep reminding people, because actually we all need as many reminders as possible in this world that seems to be very focused on the physical. So life purpose can be focused on love if we choose it to be.
Glenis, I'd love to keep talking about this love and building relationships and healing and forgiveness, and how can we connect with the non-human centric, kingdoms on this planet, the nature outside of us, the trees, the fish. I'm thinking in Spanish, that's why it's taking me a second. The birds, all of these other beings that are here to support us on our journey. How can we, or how do you teach people to connect with them to be also a reflection of love?
In the first instance, it's about being there. So to the ocean and to the forest, and so you have to make an extra special effort. For myself, I live in a rural farming area, and I prefer to live in areas like that where there's not many people around, because the energy is very much different than when you're in the city. But many people can't actually get out to the environment. Like if they're in the middle of the States, going to the beach is not really an option. So one of the things I've talked about on my channel is telling people that they can access things like the environment through your visualization. Obviously, if you live in the environment and you are nearby, then you can visit and access quite easily. But on a spiritual level, we can actually access anything that we want to. And I actually often do visualize being on the beach in Hawaii, where you are. Often when I am wanting to remind myself to be calm and just enjoy the sound of the waves in my head. However, there's also YouTube where you can access any part of the world by watching videos of anywhere that you want to look at. And so obviously being there is first and foremost ideal. But if you can't, and many can't for lots of reasons, then you can visualize or watch YouTube videos and approximate the feelings. Because if our thoughts create our reality and our energy creates our reality, then if we think Hawaii beach, then that energy will come to us. So that's a powerful way of connecting to nature, even if you can't get there. One of the things I'm mindful of, as you noted, that is that on TikTok, there's a lot of videos currently about people asking the trees to touch them. And the trees actually are reaching over and people on their shoulders. And many people are doing this and being floored. But it's about understanding the energetic nature of our planet, that everything has we call it modi in our language, which is a life essence. So it doesn't matter what form of nature you're talking about. It has an energy, a vibration, a frequency. Even our rocks, our crystals have, another type of energy and frequency. And so when you have a specific job to do that requires you to be in nature, then it's about setting an intention. And a lot of our healers here in this country go to the ocean or the river for cleansing. And so they will go and set that intention to cleanse themselves in the water, or to bless a taonga, a necklace, may have greenstone in it. So it's also about knowing what you're going there for. And many people talk about going to the forest or the beach to calm themselves down. And so on a spiritual level, on an energetic level, it's also about understanding what it is that you're needing to access while you're at these different places. And also, if you are energy sensitive, then there will be places that you will resonate with, and there will be other places that you won't. So it's about taking notice of those different energies. And there's lots of different reasons why you may not resonate with a place, but it's about listening to what your senses are telling you whenever you go to an environment, whether you're meant to be there, whether you're meant to do some cleansing or some energizing, and whether you need to hug the trees or not. So it's paying attention to what your spiritual guidance is telling you is needed in every given situation. So there's a lot of tuning in, connecting in, understanding what you need and what the environment is able to provide you. So I like to give people lots of options because, some people can accept a way of doing things and other people need other ways of doing things. So that's why I like to provide different options for people because some will understand it doing it one way and some will understand it doing another way. So I like to share many options as possible on my videos. Yeah, so that's quite a lot of different options there.
No, they're all great. We are presenting to the best of our ability concepts and trying to reach so many people. And I always look at everything as a cultural exchange, right? We all come from different cultures, different ways of being, different, even using language, using English in different forms, whether it's your first language or not. English is not my first language. And so we're just trying to connect. So I thank you for sharing all the different ways that we can connect and that you are constantly sharing with people. There is no one way, right? Find your path, find your truth, find the practices and connect to that. So I'm wondering, Glenis, I've had the amazing grace of being able to sit with some Maoris in ceremony. And I'm wondering, as an island nation of New Zealand, right? I believe land teaches us different things. What do you think New Zealand as a place is here to teach the rest of the world?
So when I think about New Zealand, the land, it's a different type of lesson from New Zealand, the people. But in the end, I feel like both the people and the land need to learn to unite, because we all have so many different opinions and different ways of being and seeing things that being in a energy of harmony and peace and unity can often be quite difficult. Our history on our country of being colonized and of the land being sold, the non-Māori, and whether that was legal or not, is also a reflection of the need for forgiveness and love and connection and unity and harmony between people and the land. Because many of our people also are not connected to the land. They live in cities or grew up in cities or are not connected to their families or their lineage. And so I feel like if I had to give one lesson from our country, it would be the need for the people in the land to unite and connect and become one again. There are many people who are very connected to the land and use our healing plants and medicines, but the majority don't even know that there are medicines and plants or use them. And so part of our journey with colonization is trying to reconnect to those beliefs about the land and those beliefs about healing and medicine, as well as self, physical as well as spiritual. So it would be about unity and harmony and peace, I think.
Oh, that's beautiful. Thank you so much. So, my friend, what do you think in all of your teachings and in everything that you're sharing with the world, with the amount of energy that's shifting on the planet right now? What can we be prepared for? How can we be prepared for these coming shifts? You share a lot about energy shifts and symptoms on your TikTok. But what's maybe a simple, just one simple practice to connect to what is happening and for people to be able to, as you said, connect to the land and kind of ground more into the change to create more ease for them? Does that make sense?
Yes, so I would advocate that people learn to connect to their spiritual guidance and learn to interpret and discern that guidance. And once you understand what your guidance is, then follow that and do nothing else. And this is actually something that people find really hard to do because for many people, they weren't brought up that way to start off with. And so it's a foreign concept. And then as you do start opening up to your spiritual guidance, you don't believe it oftentimes and try and do the opposite of what you're being told or just won't listen. And so it takes quite a while to realize that you are listening to spiritual guidance and that you can follow it and trust it and have faith that what you're hearing is what is 100% right for you. And so that takes time and practice and more like a trial and error period, however long that takes, because if you didn't grow up with a spiritual understanding and knowing, then you will find it difficult in your ego mind to understand and believe it. But once you do, then you can take action knowing that you will be looked after and blessed and taken care of, even if your guidance doesn't make logical sense. And that's the part that people find hard is when they get guidance that doesn't make sense to them. And so they won't follow it and they miss out on the blessings or the lessons or the healing. And so that's one thing that I will always keep advocating that people do is learn to tune into their spiritual guidance and following it, because many of us haven't on many occasions in our spiritual journey for one reason or another. But as you become more experienced, you realize that, well, I've learned that spiritual guidance is laser focused and laser precise, and there are no coincidences and there are no accidents or mistakes. So it is when you don't listen that's when things go awry. So that's one of my biggest lessons is learning to trust the guidance actually. And so I feel like that's what people need a lot more of as we go into this. It will continue on these energy shifts and see where that takes us in the future.
So true. And I'm so glad that I listened to reach out to you and that we're having this conversation in circles. So I am grateful for that. So let's talk a little bit more about your amazing Truth Academy and how can people connect? What are you offering to the world right now?
Yes, thank you. So I am releasing a set of e-courses in February and November. I only release them twice a year because the energy price is quite high. And so I said to Spirit, I can't be doing that every week. I need to have a break between e-course launches. And as well as that, I do provide coaching, intuitive coaching and forgiveness sessions. And this was my spiritual guidance when I first started. And also they mentioned doing retreats. My spiritual guidance said that I need to do one of those soon. So it was about looking at the ways that are best going to help people, because I can't be with people 24/7 or even for extended periods of time being on the other side of the world. And so for me, e-courses were a way for people to have the knowledge whenever they wanted it, rather than having to book sessions with me. That was the thinking behind it. And so I have followed through and done that. I understand from my spiritual guidance that the format may change, but the premise of teaching people how to connect to their spirituality will always remain the same.
Yes, wow. It's so true, to try to find new ways to connect with people now that we are everyone is searching and all around the globe at all different times. So I'm so excited that you're offering these self-paced courses and people access to your wisdom and your knowledge and your medicine. And for all of you who are not following our friend Glenis, please follow them on TikTok at Key of Truth Academy, and we'll have all the links. But the last thing I want to talk about is you talk a lot about learning to accept change. And I think, Glenis, that is one of the hot topics or the hardest things that we as humans, even though we know change is always going to happen, what wisdom do you have to share with everyone about being able to accept change?
So finding it hard to accept change is a concept of the ego that is always working to keep us safe and protected and comfortable. And so whenever we feel challenged, our ego will jump up and say, no, you don't have to do that. It's okay. And so on the spiritual journey, sometimes you have a choice, but oftentimes you don't. So these energy shifts will happen whether you are opting into them or not. And so allowing yourself the blessing of accepting the changes that are going to come is a kindness to yourself, because they're going to come whether you want them or not. And so it's something that takes a while to learn, because when you are still working from the ego, you find it hard to trust spirit, and it's hard to think that these changes are for your highest good. But it's in realizing that spirit always have your highest good in mind that you learn to trust and have faith that all these things that are happening are going to benefit you. And it has turned out that way. As time has gone by, I've realized the amounts of changes that I've been through, and they have been beneficial. Sometimes I still may not enjoy the process of the changes or the symptoms, but I understand that there's a need for it. And the other thing is accepting that this was part of your life purpose. Why you came to this planet at this point in time was to assist with the energy shifts. And so having energy shift symptoms that aren't comfortable or enjoyable as a part of the work, then it's easier to accept that you chose to come here for the purpose of raising the energies, and this is one of the ways to do that. So it's about accepting that these changes are for your highest good, and also that they will help to assist the planet as well. It's easier to accept what's going on when you realize you're contributing to the collective by experiencing these energy symptoms as well as your own journey. So you're actually in service to the divine when you're going through these changes. And so it helps. Sometimes it may not fully cover what you're feeling, but it does help to have a different understanding of these changes, looking at it from a spiritual perspective.
And from that spiritual perspective, we are all connected. We all have the divine, and we are all on this path together as we continue to grow, change, and evolve. Thank you, Glenis, so much for everything that you are doing for humanity, for yourself, for your people, for the planet. Thank you for sharing your path and your journey. And thank you for taking the time to come here and to continue to be medicine. I'm super excited to continue to follow you on TikTok and have people go check out your Key of Truth Academy. And with that, Glenis, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart, from my people, to you. Thank you for being the light.
Thank you so much for having me on this podcast. I've enjoyed speaking with you and sharing some of my insights about spirituality. I really appreciate you having me.
Beautiful. Until next time, Glenis, I'll see you soon, okay?
Thank you.
Shade. Once again, it is with deepest gratitude that I bow to you for joining me on this podcast, this episode, this circle, this plática, this meditation, this remembering. I hope that you have stayed curious. I hope to see you in the circle again next week. So make sure that you like or follow. Until then, may you be blessed with abundance of peace and radical self-love.